Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Suzanne, and I'm with Trellis, and I'm going to introduce the team and kind of introduce what the chat is about today. So one of the things, if you have questions and you leave them in the chat room, we will make sure that we go over them at the end and get them from Carly if we need to, and answer any of those questions and that kind of stuff. So our building connected communities is our presentation, and I'll introduce the team that's presenting. So I'm Suzanne, I'm with Trellis. Ad is here somewhere. Not sure if he's up on your screen, but Ad is here. He's with Community Connections. Odette is here, and also Shelina. Shalini's on the list, but she's not here with us. There's Shelina waving. And so we'll get started here. So we're looking at what some of the things that are going to be shared today are learnings. And so one of the first things is our increased comfort level. And you'll hear that maybe a few times through the team, how our level to connect with residents increased, and so did residents, whether it was online or now coming in for in-person programming. One of the other things was the slowdown. And so we found that in the beginning, in the first year of COVID, of course, there was a lot more basic needs and a lot more really quick connecting and that type of thing. And so kind of slowing down the work and being a little more intentional definitely became a priority in the second year. Adopting new ways of building connections. And so instead of, maybe we were looking at, one of the things that we chatted about was that we were looking at connecting with people maybe over the phone. You know, some of the short things were when we were on a session, we opened the Zoom a bit early so that there was time to connect with people. Different approach to reach out and maintain relationships. And that was through check-in phone calls and check-in over Zoom time, and meaningful and impactful program that were meeting the needs. So we were looking at what were the needs, what were residents asking us, and how did they need that support. And so moving on, next slide, welcome Ad.
Thank you. So I'm going to go into a bit more detail about our approaches. The first year we had COVID, we made a few adjustments in the second year. So obviously there was a lot of issues that were happening during the year. We had a pandemic, obviously, world issues, politics, gas prices, housing, everything was out of control. And of course, we can't forget the most scandalous news on television in front of millions of viewers. That's right, Clayton Eckhart poorly treating the ladies on the show Bachelor. Everyone is talking about that. And so all sorts of stuff happening. But what, like Suzanne was mentioning about using opportunities to just have conversations. So some of the stuff we were doing that we maybe weren't I was doing before was we'd use, so when we had sessions online, we used to go right into the meetings. Sometimes even that was happening in person, but we actually took the time to have a check-in with people, like just maybe not a check-in, but just expressing concerns about what's going on in the community. So when I'm meeting with residents, I'm talking to folks about how they're doing, but also sharing successes and positive stories and celebrating together. This was really key about the relationships because it made people feel welcomed, safe, connected, and cared about. And our role was mostly about just facilitating that conversation, being empathetic, and being flexible. I had a meeting and the meeting didn't start till 15-20 minutes after, and it was okay. And so we're just encouraging is to allow that time to just have a check-in and just having those conversations with folks about how they're doing. So informal gatherings can be in person and they can be virtual. It doesn't have to be, because we assume we just go right into the session, but I think it could be a team building, or it could just be how's everybody doing, and maybe just share something fun that you did during the week. The other thing was we were still continuing to create leadership opportunities for folks. That could happen in person, but there was no reason to do that also. So the first thing was around technology. The first year when COVID happened, everyone was panicking around using technology. Staff had to learn a lot of stuff. I even requested through Trellis to get a makeup and hair crew, and they said that's not going to happen. So we had to look good all the time. But then the second year, we started actually supporting folks, residents around their capacity around using technology. And so that meant folks were running about how to setting the right camera angle, sharing the screen, using breakout rooms. And it was done at, again, when we're doing that, we're doing it at a very gentle process. We were also using other opportunities where folks, if they want to take minutes, one of the groups I was working with, they wanted to create a Facebook page, Twitter account, Instagram on our Communities Overcoming Racism group. And it was a huge task, and it took a lot of, needed to take a lot of time. So we had a conversation about it, and we just basically gave folks the opportunity and supported them doing that. So when we're supporting folks around creating those opportunities, we're always doing it from a lens that's resident-led, trauma-informed, and feedback-informed. So that's being consistent. So whether it's in person or virtual, we're being consistent with that process. And it's always like to make sure that people are comfortable. How do they need support? You have to have more support. And the thing is, you have to give more effort in virtual. We found that in person, I would have those conversations before the meeting, I would meet residents for coffee. That wasn't always happening. So that meant we created a WhatsApp chat so I can connect with residents ongoing, just so we're connected, our folks are on the same page. That also meant making phone calls with folks, group check-ins before meetings. So we had to just make a few adjustments around it because I found there was too much information by emails, people weren't connecting, responding, and we found that was helping. So when we were working on, like, for example, creating a Facebook page, residents were overwhelmed with the amount of work that required. So instead, we just said, you know what, why don't we just spend our meeting time to work on it together as a group and to make sure it's comfortable. So supporting people with their comfort level on taking leadership instead of throwing leadership and saying, here's an opportunity for you. Do you want it? And if you do want it, how can we support you with it? The other thing was that I had mentioned before, checking with residents, but we were also doing that informally. In the past, I used to go door knocking, set up tables at different areas in the community and engage with residents, ask them questions about needs and issues. So instead of that, we used opportunities by just door knocking and talking to folks about how they were doing and not focusing on specifically any issues. And it was more about just building the relationship. So even when we were making appointments for tax clinics, we used those opportunities to find out how folks were doing. And those calls led to a lot of stuff coming out, and it did address some of the issues. People were feeling isolated. There was issues around wellness, mental health, and that put in more time for us. So although we're focused on community development, it meant that we also needed to address basic needs issues. And so it was connecting folks to basic needs resources. It was also connecting folks to internal programs. And we found that people really appreciated that extra time, and it did mean putting in some extra work. We encourage residents to bring their own supplies for programming. We had a limited budget to run certain programs or run them for a longer time frame. Residents were encouraged to bring their own supplies, baking supplies. So if there's a baking group, we asked folks if they could bring their baking supplies, ingredients, and it was just asked because this allowed us to stretch money and run programs longer. We were able to pool that extra money for grants, and you know what that means? We could take residents out to the nearest pub for team building. No, we didn't do that. We actually use that money to run other programs that residents in the community were requesting. And it just helped us to run programs longer or run other programs. And so it just gave us that flexibility to run more programming. We also supported residents to apply for various grants. There's a lot of grants out there that, yes, organizations can apply for, but there's also quite a lot of grants that need to come from the community and need to come from residents. So we encourage residents to apply for grants. And again, when we're talking about encouraging residents, it's supportive, it's a conversation, and it's not saying that anyone needs to do that. There were specific criteria to be met when applying for grants. So it might be fostering truth and reconciliation, increasing economic participation, building inclusive neighborhoods. Now that can be very intimidating for residents and even maybe some organizations about what does that mean. And so those were conversations, and that included when we're trying to empower residents, we're actually trying to teach, role model, support, and that's also supporting folks at their comfort level. So for example, as a group of residents, they weren't comfortable, we did the grant together. And so it was a conversation about, does this align with what our group wants to do? And after doing that grant a few times as a group, now we have several residents that are quite comfortable doing the grants on their own. So we thought that went really well. The other thing we adjusted with was the adapting to online, hybrid, or in-person with protocols in place with technology. So we realized we were receiving feedback from residents, especially last year. They were saying, late last year, saying that they were actually preferring some in-person programming, but there were still folks that were not comfortable and wanted the virtual. And so we decided to actually, so for tax clinics this year, the Bacon Group and some of their programs, we did offer a combination of in-person and virtual. For those folks that weren't comfortable, they could come to the virtual, and those folks that were comfortable in person and we had space, we offered it, and it went really well. And people really appreciated us recognizing where people were at and what would be most supportive. We also did a hybrid approach later on this year, which involved actually running programming at a physical location. And we were able to set up a camera inside of a laptop. So folks that weren't able to attend at the physical location were able to watch it from home. There is no best way. I think a lot of the stuff that we're doing, if you're actually having conversations with residents, you'll get that information. So a lot of the stuff, as I mentioned before, resident-led, meaning having ongoing conversations about where folks are at and what is working and how we can best support. And that's how kind of we adjusted based on what residents were saying. So thanks for that. I'm going to pass it over to Odette.
Thank you so much, Ad. May I have the next slide, please? Thank you, and thank you, everyone. So my name is Odette. So I'm going to talk about how we managed to create opportunities for the BYC youth. BYC stands for Building Youth Connections. It's a program based in the Genesis Center. And one of the programs that we had last year was Master Chef, which is a cooking program for the age of, between the age of 12 and 24. So the opportunity that was there was the opportunity to engage with the different demographics. So what we did, we invited the seniors to come to the cooking programs to facilitate the programs, to share their baking skills with the youth. What was very interesting in these engagements was how the interactive the sessions were compared to when they were just by youth among themselves. So youth were able to learn skills. They were also able to engage, to ask questions. They were able to build some capacities in a sense that they even in the future tried to also follow the steps of the seniors and were leading cooking and baking sessions. And again, what was very important was how they then followed the model of leading the sessions interactively. Okay, so this was really very important, just to have these youth who are between the age of 12 and 24 come together with the elders, come together with the seniors and learn from not only cooking, but also engage in other conversations which were beneficial to the youth. So another opportunity was community connections opportunity, which was through community gardening program. Last year, we had that program from the Robert Macro Church in the Northeast, where the Trellis has some gardening plots next to the residents' garden plots as well. So it was a good opportunity to learn. It was also an opportunity for physical, social, and mental health of these youth. So I say mental because youth were able to connect with the nature. They were able to connect with the Mother Earth. They were able to connect, play with the soil. But more importantly, it was during the COVID time where most of the programs were online, but this time they were able to go out there, you know, and have that atmosphere in person. So it was so helpful mentally. It was healthy mentally in a sense that they connected with the space, and also it was social in a sense that they connected with other youth from Trellis programs who were also in the gardening program, and also with the with the residents from different backgrounds, if I can say that. So they socialized, they interacted, you know, they exchanged talks and everything, which was also beneficial. It also benefited them physically because they were involved in sowing seeds, planting, watering on a regular basis, and also decorating the gardens and harvesting. So it was a very good opportunity in a sense that they took their skill of painting, they took their skill of art to the garden. So they painted, they involved themselves, they engaged into decorating gardens, and not only BYC gardens, actually they even, you know, they decorated different gardens next to their BYC gardens, which was really very good opportunity. So the engagements there were so crucial to how they learned about gardening, and also to how they physically participated and connect with others. Okay, so I can also say during this opportunity of gardening, the harvest, which include spinach, carrots, we had the spinach, carrots, and what else? Tomatoes, and different produce were used towards their cooking program, the Master Chef program, while the rest was shared with the residents to test the harvest. Look at that. That was really very important because youth had also an opportunity to learn how to use the available resources. Because normally for cooking programs, we had the budget to buy supplies, but this time they knew that they were going to use the harvest of their own energy to also use it in another program. So this was really very connecting from the art to cooking to gardening, and it was very beneficial to them. What was also interesting during this opportunity is that some parents who had accompanied their kids to the gardens had an opportunity to engage with us and learn more about BYC and Trellis programs in general. And this was also important because they knew where to go in the future if they needed certain support, which was very important. Thanks for the opportunity to connect within the community. Thank you, and I'll pass it to Suzanne.
Hi, thanks, Odette. One of the other things we really want to mention was Trellis's long-standing collaborations and relationships. So as we were connecting and facilitating these groups, we did have a lot of mental health issues were being brought up and other family issues. And with our connections, we were able to get some support and bring in some guests and in online programming. And so people really look forward to that. And part of it was, they were part of the planning group. And so we set up small committees and asked the residents, what do they want to see and how do they want to see, whether it was a 6-week program or a one-off, how do they want to see that? And building relationships and listening to what they were looking for is where we gave residents opportunities to work and build on their own leadership skills. Thank you. I'm going to pass this on to Shelina.
Lena, you're muted.
Shelina, you're muted.
Sorry. Good morning, everyone. I am Shalina. I'm going to talk about engagement opportunities and some of the successes that we have had for these programs. Initially, we were just using the opportunities for people to come participate, connect, and socialize online. But then after some time, given some time, they were ready for more. So people that started taking leadership opportunities to share their ideas, skills. So if one person wanted to share that, oh, I know how to knit, I can teach knitting, another person came up with another idea, right? Like for cooking. So lots of
Shelina, my apologies. I accidentally muted you. Just unmute yourself.
Okay, thank you so much. Yeah, so all these leadership opportunities were coming up, and I will try to focus on our Little Learners program. It was our literacy-based programs, and we were not even initially sure that people will register, families will actually come and join and start participating in our program. So we did whatever we had to do. We started talking to people individually, however long it took, to try to convince them to come and start this program. We started giving enveloped activities ready, that, okay, here is when we'll meet, 11 o'clock, here is what you will open. So little treats were there, little activity sheets were there, little bit of homework, coloring sheets were there, crayons would be there, tape, glue, whatever it took. We tried our best to not families not to have any excuse that, oh, we are not able to do this, right? And then we would calm down, take our time, and try to ask these families, what would help you for you to come and participate into our programs? So they say, oh, can you remind me? So we even went above and beyond that. We would text them, we would email them the night before, half an hour before. We would just kind of send a reminder text for them to come participate. It was just a very gentle, no pressure approach. And eventually the family connectedness started happening, and it paid off. We started getting people registered. They started talking to each other. So we would get more people registered, and it eventually happened so that we got 100% participation from all the families that were registered. Like not even one person would not show up, right? Like children were looking forward to these sessions. And from that, we also started collaborating with Calgary Public Library. So they would bring in their story time for the families to, you know, learn and participate in the rhymes and songs. And we also did one-on-one sessions. Sometimes we would see that, okay, a child needs some speech language therapies. So all these little things were evolving. They were just coming up. And we got so popular. People were going out of country for holidays. They would say, oh, can we take our envelopes to Pakistan and do it from there? And, you know, like if we had to change a bit of time, we would do that. Like we would accommodate that learning. people moving away out of province, those families wanted to participate in our programs. Like people migrating, wanting to migrate from other parts of the world, they're coming into Canada, and they've heard of these programs. They want to register as soon as they come into Calgary, right? So we were so astonished to just see how much people are valuing and respecting these programs and how much popular we became. Instead of like, we were initially like even having to register 5 families, it was impossible. But then we had to increase our numbers, even increase the sessions, right? So it was very, very good to see that happen. And even our seniors meet up every Fridays, we meet together. And Odette and Suzanne mentioned that we would open the sessions a bit earlier because they would not stop talking to each other, right? So we thought that it would be a good idea, just open up the session 15 minutes, let them have the moments. But from even giving them that opportunity just to talk to each other, there was so much happening that people started saying that, oh, I love to meditate. I'm a qualified teacher from back home. So can I take this opportunity to teach everybody? So we have those volunteers. Some will do laughter yoga. Some will, do just gentle exercises. And they are just unbelievable, unbelievably taking these lead roles, and things, unreal things are starting to evolve. So things like yoga as well. People have, we have started supporting people take professional classes. One or two people have, they love baking, and we have supported them to take professional, cake decorating classes. And even for our knitting session, our community development worker is looking into getting them some funding or supporting them to do start their own business. So things like that are happening. Thank you. If you have any questions, just feel free to ask us in the chat, and I'll let Suzanne finish off.
Hi, everyone. Sorry. Again, we just put together a little bit of some of the information, some of the info that we, through surveys and other things, and we've connected with a lot of residents. We've got some good numbers here. The next slide is we've left some of the, because we talked about how we sign online and maybe have activities and stuff. And so we've just added some of those here. And of course, there's a lot more than this. And then more resources. These are resources that we found were really good. We could leave these with families if they were looking for just some activities, some to do together, some fitness at home, those types of things. And now we have some questions. We don't have a lot of time. We have about 30 seconds. So thank you very much. But if you have any questions, please send it in the chat or send us an email directly. And we'd love to connect with all of you. And thank you so much again.